They say that you can learn a lot about a person based on what they throw in their garbage, but even more so by what they browse on the internet. I mean, you should see my Google search history. I can't tell you the number of times I've searched things like, can cats get pimples? Am I autistic or just really gay? But then there's Brian Walshe, Hair by Hurricane, Eyes by NyQuil, whose trial kicked off earlier this week, and apparently somewhere between Googling cheating wife pron and best state for a man to get a divorce, he also found the time during the post-holiday chaos to research the trash bag killer, otherwise known as Patrick Wayne Kearney, the man who unalived at least 21 people but confessed to more than 28 between the years 1962 and 1977. So let's talk about who the trash bag killer was and why Brian Walshe allegedly was treating his Wikipedia page like a Pinterest board for body disposal methods. Let's drop in.
Patrick Kearney, Google search.
Did you review that search?
Yes, I did.
Who is Patrick Kearney?
He is was named the trash bag killer. He would murder victims and throw their corpses away into trash bags.
Hello, and welcome back, roommates, to another titillating edition of Alexasrewm, where we are not lawyers, we are not medical professionals, we are not law enforcement, we are just people who have opinions about all things going on in the true crime community, including the serial unaliver that may have inspired Brian Walshe, the Cohasset man who is currently on trial for the alleged unaliving of his wife, Anna Walshe, who vanished on January 1st, New Year's Day of 2023, after already pleading guilty to disposing of Anna's body and misleading investigators, but again, denying that he committed the actual unalive. Patrick Kearney, who was originally coined as the freeway killer, because apparently in 1970s California, being a serial killer was basically a side hustle. Like, you couldn't even get gas without accidentally bumping into at least 3 of them, especially if you were a gay man living your best gay life. But once investigators learned that Kearney would often participate in unlicensed corpse cuddling with his victims' bodies before disemboweling them and dismembering them, then tossing the remains into trash bags and scattering them along various locations, including state highways, they rebranded him as the trash bag killer. So let's rewind the tape and start from the beginning. Patrick Wayne Kearney was born on September 24th, 1939 in East LA, and was the eldest of 3 boys, and apparently was the one most likely to grow up skinning people like Thanksgiving turkey, so good on you. Now, on paper, it seems like he grew up in a pretty average / stable-ish middle-class family setup, minus the fact that they kind of moved around back and forth a lot. Mom was a stay-at-home mom, and dad, I believe, started out as an LAPD officer before eventually transitioning into travel sales. But let's not pretend this was a Norman Rockwell painting, because from what I could find, it didn't seem like Patrick and Daddy Kearney were especially close. However, at 13, his father taught him to slaughter pigs by shooting them behind the ear with a pistol. And I've seen pistol, but I've also seen 22 caliber rifle. So, but this will essentially be kind of an important piece of how his unalivings were actually carried out before we get to all the gross bits of it. And Kearney instantly took a liking to this and began killing pigs like that weren't meant to be slaughtered on his own volition, which we've seen this kind of behavior and pattern in so many other cases. I mean, one that sticks out that was not too long after we had Jeffrey Dahmer, on the other side of the map. So And it was apparently the blood and the organs that he liked so much. And when he thought no one was around, he would kill the pigs so that he could roll around in their intestines. Talk about a pig in shit. And the reason for this father son bonding ritual was mainly to get Patrick to toughen up because he was a target for bullying at school. Kids would often pick on him because he was very skinny, very thin, almost sickly looking, and queer leaning. Although at the time he did believe, and this is kind of messed up when you're a kid, you're just learning about yourself. You're not really intentionally thinking about sexuality or anything like that. That's just when it's starting to develop. But at the time, he was interested in girls, but he would still be the subject of getting picked on and called queer, etc. And again, this is during the 40s and 50s at this point. And somewhere between his pig popping and being called these terrible slurs in school, young Patrick started dreaming up revenge unaliving fantasies that typically involved skinning people alive. Charming. Oh, and apparently, too, he also started to dip his toes into doing grossly intimate things with the family dog, apparently. 1958, he decides he wants to join the Air Force, and he does, and he ends up getting stationed in Texas, where, plot twist, he meets a guy named David Hill through a friend of a friend, and they become lovers, who ends up actually playing a part in his future unaliving. Because you know what they say, behind every gay is a more evil gay. So the New York Times first broke the case when this all started to hit the fan in July of 1977. This was written by John M. Crudson, but I think it was also covered by a couple of other reporters at the time as well. So Coast Killings bizarre case widens. Los Angeles, July 10th, when 17-year-old John LeMay failed to return to his home in El Segundo one Sunday night in March. His mother began to worry. He'd spent the night at a friend's house a couple of times before without telling me, Patricia LeMay said, but never on a school night, and she sensed that something had gone wrong. Early the next morning, she called a classmate who suggested that she get in touch with another of John's friends, a man twice his age named Dave. Where have we heard that name before? Who lived a few miles away in Redondo Beach. That's a great song by Patti Smith. And it was interesting because when I first found this out, that this is where they were living at the time, David Hill and Patrick Wayne Kearney, as we're going to learn a little bit. I had thought to myself, because I think Redondo Beach came out sometime in the early 70s, which would have been at around the time that these unalivings were happening, but it was about the song, Patti Smith's sister going missing, and her worrying about it. So I don't know if there was anything potentially loosely based around this and what was happening at the time, but pretty interesting stuff. And again, great song. One of the cluster of towns that line the Pacific coast, about 20 miles south of here. That's the first time I had heard about him, Mrs. LeMay said of the older man. And when she notified the El Segundo police of her son's disappearance, she told them about Dave and gave them the address of the shabby white stucco house where he lived. So this is when everything is starting to crumble for Patrick Wayne Kearney. 2 months later, warrants were issued charging David Douglas Hill, 34, and his roommate, gotta love the 70s, right? His roommate, Patrick Wayne Kearney, 37, with having unalived John LeMay, sawed off his hands, feet, and head, and buried what remained of his body in a plastic trash bag in a wilderness area 50 miles east of the neat little pink house where he had lived. Mrs. LeMay's tip provided the police with their only real break since the body of Albert Rivera, the first one associated with what came to be known as the trash bag unalivings, was unearthed near San Juan Capistrano a little over 2 years ago. So again, this was published in 77, so this would have been 75 they're referring to. According to investigators, John LeMay was probably the last of a series of young men unalived by Mr. Kearney and Mr. Hill over the past decade, in what shows signs of becoming the most extensive and one of the most bizarre unaliving cases in the country's history, which is where we're going to pause things for now. But if you want to catch the rest of this deep dive, make sure you hit the join button below this video so you can continue to go through the rest of this story with me. It was really fascinating for me to put together. I'm really excited to offer members more perks aside from the ad-free content that they get with every video that I post. So if you want more videos like this, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, or drop me a comment below and let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, see you in the members room.